watching All 24 News World News Program, broadcasting to you live from the capital, Algiers. To the headlines. Trilateral talks hit a deadlock. Iran wants a full ceasefire. Trump orders Hormuz mines cleared. And Lebanon's debt toll passes 2,000. The Vatican says Pope Leo's visit to Algeria is about fraternity. Commands state efforts and experts highlight its ethical weight, all with unprecedented media coverage for the first time since independence. Also coming up, the Polisario lays out its stance on Minurso before UN talks. Zimbabwe and Venezuela both back the Sahrawi right to self-determination. The truce is in place, but accusations fly. Russia blames Ukraine for hitting Kursk. Ukraine says Russian airstrikes killed 2 in Odessa and 2 more died in a Ukrainian attack in Kherson. After weeks of escalating conflict, a fragile diplomatic window is opening as Iran and the United States hold rare face-to-face talks aimed at turning the temporary truce into a lasting ceasefire. Zafrajan reports.
After weeks of fighting, there is now a cautious shift toward diplomacy. For the first time since 1979, Iranian and American delegations are meeting directly, this time in Islamabad under Pakistani mediation. The talks come just days after a fragile ceasefire was reached, ending 6 weeks of war, with both sides now seeking a more permanent halt to hostilities. According to sources close to the negotiations, the first round of discussions has concluded with both delegations exchanging written proposals to confirm areas of agreement. So far, the tone is being described as constructive, but technical talks are still ongoing, and negotiations could stretch into another day. Iran is making its position clear, saying any deal must include a full and comprehensive ceasefire across the region, not just limited to one front.
A ceasefire, a halt to the war on all fronts, including in Lebanon, has been part of the ceasefire deal. This is not only what we have said or claimed. The Pakistani mediator has also explicitly stated this. This has been our demand, and in recent days, the issue has been raised very clearly. Since yesterday, when we arrived here, communication between Islamabad and Beirut have been ongoing. We are in contact with our ambassador in Beirut, who continuously reports to us and to the relevant authorities in Lebanon to ensure that the commitment made regarding the ceasefire are implemented on all fronts.
Officials also stressed their red lines, especially when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, which remains a key point of tension. Tehran says it has already flagged movements that nearly violated the ceasefire, raising those concerns with the Pakistani mediator during the talks. For his part, U.S. President Donald Trump says the United States will make sure the Strait of Hormuz stays open, calling it an international waterway, but admitting it won't be easy.
No, we're not going to let that. It's international water. If they're doing that, nobody knows if they're doing that, but if they're doing that, we're not going to let that happen. Yeah, but that'll open up automatically. The answer is yes, but the strait will open up. If we just left, the strait's going to, otherwise they make no money. So the strait's going to open. It won't be easy. It won't be, I would say this, we will have that open fairly soon.
And while diplomacy is underway, tensions on the ground haven't disappeared. Iranian reports say a U.S. destroyer moved toward the Strait of Hormuz before turning back, after warnings from Tehran that it could be targeted if it kept going. That incident, reportedly shared with negotiators in real time, shows just how fragile the situation still is. So while talks are moving forward, the situation remains tense, and the real test will be whether this fragile ceasefire can actually hold.
The White House is pushing back on a Reuters report. Sources there deny any deal to release Iranian assets held in Qatar and other foreign banks. CBS News, citing a senior U.S. official, says the White House calls those claims false and unfounded. Reuters had reported the asset release was tied to safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz before any peace deal. Tehran reportedly sees the American move as a test of good faith, a proof of whether Washington is serious about lasting peace. President Donald Trump says the talks in Islamabad are officially a go. He told reporters it won't take long to figure out if Iran's delegation is acting in good faith.
No nuclear weapon, number one. You know, I think it's already been regime change, but we never had that as a criteria. No nuclear weapon. That's 99% of us.
Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar has expressed hope that the United States and Iran will engage constructively in peace talks as the U.S. delegation arrived in Islamabad. In a statement from the Foreign Ministry, Dar reaffirmed Islamabad's position, stressing its continued role in facilitating efforts toward a lasting and stable resolution to the conflict between both sides.
By accepting our proposal, they have not only agreed to a temporary ceasefire, but have also responded to our earlier call. The most difficult phase still lies ahead, achieving a permanent ceasefire. This will require addressing complex issues through negotiations. What can rightly be called the decisive moment, the Pakistani leadership will make every sincere effort to ensure the success of these talks. Ultimately, however, the outcome rests in the hands of God Almighty.
U.S. President Donald Trump says an operation has begun to clear the Strait of Hormuz of mines, aiming to reopen the strategic waterway to maritime traffic. In a social media post, Trump claimed all Iranian mine-laying vessels had been sunk. He added the operation would serve multiple countries reliant on the route, including China, Japan, South Korea, France, and Germany.
We are now starting the process of clearing out the Strait of Hormuz as a favor to countries all over the world, including China, Japan, South Korea, France, Germany, and many others.
A near total closure of the Strait of Hormuz has left roughly 346 energy vessels stranded in the Arabian Gulf. That includes 241 fully loaded tankers, according to tanker tracking company Kepler. Together, they're holding about 104 million barrels of crude and condensates, plus 1.3 million tons of LNG and 5.5 million tons of other cargo, and 1,000 barrels of LPG. All this as global energy supplies face a severe crisis, even with a temporary ceasefire in place. 22 people were killed and others wounded in Zionist airstrikes on southern Lebanon on Saturday, according to Lebanese media. The national news agency reported strikes across the Nabatiya governorate, with multiple towns hit and significant damage to infrastructure. Separate attacks in Deir Zahrani and Deir Qanoun also caused additional casualties. Lebanon's health ministry said 97 people were killed and 133 injured in the past 24 hours alone, bringing the total death toll since March 2nd to 2020 dead, with 6,436 wounded. 8 Palestinians were killed and others wounded after a Zionist airstrike hit the Burij refugee camp south of Gaza City. The Palestinian Information Center says 3 more people were injured in a drone strike targeting displaced civilians in Bani Suhaila, east of Khan Yunis. That attack came alongside artillery shelling in several areas, all of it a continued violation of the ceasefire agreement. The Palestinian Ministry of Health says a young man was killed after being shot by settlers during an attack northeast of Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Officials say the armed settlers under the protection of Zionist occupation forces entered the village from the west and opened fire on residents, wounding the man in the back. He later died in hospital from his injuries. In Gaza, students are going back to class, but barely. Classrooms are in damaged buildings and makeshift shelters. Textbooks and resources are almost non-existent. Most of the educational infrastructure is destroyed after Zionist attacks. Kermisfoy has more.
Despite the harsh conditions, these Palestinian students in Gaza continue to attend classes. However, lessons are now held in makeshift tents or damaged buildings without chairs or desks or even basic supplies. Today, makeshift tents and partially destroyed university buildings have been turned into classrooms.
Students struggle to reach classes. There are not enough seats, no stationery or books. Students are trapped in extremely difficult conditions that are not suitable for learning.
I used to dream of becoming a cardiologist, but everything has changed. Before the war, we had schools and universities. Now our schools are just tents and rubble.
According to the Gaza government, 165 educational centers have been completely destroyed, while 392 others have been damaged after more than 2 years of genocide.
More than 86,000 students are currently receiving education through 2,600 teachers. These learning points are simply tents where students sit on the ground with no blackboards or textbooks.
As students try to keep learning and teachers continue working under such harsh conditions, the future of education in Gaza remains uncertain. Yet, despite the obstacles, many remain determined to keep going.
Big crowds hit the streets of several European capitals on Saturday. They condemned the Israeli occupation's ongoing aggression against Palestine and Lebanon, and they called for accountability for crimes against civilians. Thousands marched in London, Oslo, and Stockholm, demanding an end to the attacks on Gaza, the West Bank, and Lebanon. They waved Palestinian and Lebanese flags, holding signs that denounced the occupation's crimes against unarmed people. The diocesan official of Constantine in eastern Algeria, Michel Guillou, says Pope Leo XIV's visit to Algeria carries a message of friendship and fraternity toward the Algerian people. Speaking to French channel KTO, he said the visit is not a personal pilgrimage to St. Augustine, but an opportunity for the Pope to meet Algerians directly during stops in several regions of the country.
This time, the Pope is not coming on a personal pilgrimage to St. Augustine, but rather to meet the Algerian people. This will be through a large mass in Annaba, followed by a meeting with the church and its friends at Notre Dame d'Afrique in Algiers. There is also the possibility of other meetings with Muslim friends, who will certainly join us, whether inside the Basilica or outside via screens.
The diocesan official says Algeria is well prepared to host the Vatican-Pope's visit and that the Algerian state has pulled out all the stops to make this historic moment a success.
We are here to support the Church in its mission, and we must also support the Pope. For Algerians, this visit is a form of recognition. The Algerian people have value. They deserve to be met, and the country deserves to be visited. It is a source of joy and pride, and Algerians are keen to offer a warm reception. The authorities, at the highest levels, are also committed to ensuring that foreign guests are welcomed in the best possible way.
Pope Leo XIV's upcoming visit to Algeria is drawing huge international attention, turning it into a global event with political, cultural, and strategic weight. Major media are highlighting its historical symbolism as the first such visit in decades, set against rapidly shifting international dynamics. Yasin reports now.
Algeria has drawn significant local and international attention ahead of the anticipated visit of Pope Leo XIV in what is widely described as a historic moment for the country. The visit, the first papal trip to Algeria since independence, is being framed as both a spiritual pilgrimage and a major diplomatic development. Media coverage has extended well beyond religious dimension, portraying the visit as a message of coexistence and a call for peace amid rising global tensions. Analysts across outlets agree that it underscores the importance of the interfaith dialogue at a time marked by religious and political divisions. Meanwhile, Algerian media have emphasized the country's growing soft power, noting that the Pope's decision to begin his African tour in Algeria reflects its stability and its role as a regional mediator. Commentators highlight Algeria's increasing engagement on the international stage and its capacity to foster dialogue among global actors. Arab media, meanwhile, have focused on the human and spiritual aspects of the visit, describing it as an effort to build bridges between religions. Particular attention has been given to Algeria as the birthplace of St. Augustine, whose legacy continues to resonate, especially in the eastern city of Annaba. International observers have also portrayed the trip as a personal pilgrimage for the Pope, rooted in his connection to Augustine. More broadly, they see Algeria as a model of religious openness, bridging not only faiths, but also the divide between North and Sub-Saharan Africa. Officials and religious figures have reinforced this narrative. Monsignor Khaled Aksha, former Secretary of the Vatican's Dicastery for Interreligious Dialogue, described the visit as transcending diplomacy reaching into spiritual, ethical and intellectual realms. He praised Algeria's respect for religious freedom and pointed the presence of historic Christian sites.
The Pope's visit to Algeria can primarily be understood as a pilgrimage, which in my view is its most important aspect. However, it also carries other significant dimensions. When we consider the stature of St. Augustine in both Christian and broader human thought, we can better appreciate the deeper meaning of this visit. Of course, there are diplomatic elements as well, particularly in terms of relations between the Holy See and Algeria. Still, the most essential dimension remains the spiritual, ethical, and intellectual ones. I, along with many others, would be truly pleased if the Pope's visit helped revive interest in St. Augustine and the rich legacy of this great figure from your country. The presence of basilicas, churches, bishops, cardinals, and priests reflects a respect for religious freedom. It is important that we continue to move forward in strengthening this vital aspect of human relationships and the connections between people of different faiths.
Aksha expressed confidence that the Pope's address from Algeria would carry a message of fraternity to Muslims worldwide. Similarly, Minister of Religious Affairs Youssef Belmadi highlighted Algeria's long-standing role in spreading Islam through scholarship and trade, describing the country as a beacon of moderation and tolerance.
We are among those who carried Islam into Africa and Europe, taking part in the conquest of Al-Andalus under the leadership of Tariq ibn Ziyad, the Berber. From there, the message continued to spread, even into parts of southern France. Our influence also reached the Eastern Islamic world, as many of our scholars traveled as merchants to places like India and China, engaging in trade while introducing Islam. Algeria has long been a source of goodness and peace. Whoever seeks our friendship will find honor and a warm welcome. We are a peaceful nation. We have never sought to attack others. This remains Algeria's guiding principle, not to interfere in the affairs of others, but to contribute to reform and to what benefits humanity. This is what gives Algeria its distinctive character.
Taken together, all these perspectives reflect a broader international consensus. Algeria represents a rare spiritual mosaic where the legacy of St. Augustine meets the influence of Great Mosque of Algiers, positioning the country as a unique space for dialogue in a divided world.
Algeria's Minister of Hydrocarbons and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, says the country is pushing ahead with reforms to make the sector more attractive to investors, aiming to reinforce Algeria's position as a reliable energy supplier. He stressed that hydrocarbons remain a cornerstone of the national economy and energy security. Arqab also outlined plans to expand reserves, modernize infrastructure, and launch a new exploration and investment bidding round in the coming days.
إن قطاع المحروقات يظل
The hydrocarbons sector remains a cornerstone of the national economy, ensuring energy reserves and keeping pace with global developments. In this context, we continue our efforts to boost investment, expand our reserve base, and modernize infrastructure using the latest technologies. We are also working to enhance the sector's attractiveness through a favorable legal framework. In this regard, the National Agency for the Valorization of Hydrocarbon Resources, ALNAFT, is preparing to launch the Algeria Bid Round 2026 investment round in the coming days, aiming to attract new partners and strengthen Algeria's position as a leading energy destination.
Moving on to another topical news story. The Polisario Front's UN representative Sidi Mohamed Omar has reaffirmed the movement's position on MINURSO ahead of the upcoming UN Security Council consultations on Western Sahara. He met UN Peacekeeping Chief Jean-Pierre Lacroix in New York, where discussions focused on the mission and the upcoming council session. Closed-door consultations are expected on April 24 under Bahrain's presidency, followed by a strategic review report on MINURSO's mandate on April 30. Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa has reiterated his country's unconditional support for the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination in a message marking the 50th anniversary of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. He reaffirmed the commitment to strengthen historic ties with the Sahrawi leadership and described the relationship as one of long-standing solidarity. Separately, Venezuela's foreign ministry also restated its support for the Sahrawi cause during meetings between officials in Caracas and a delegation from the Sahrawi Republic led by President Brahim Ghali. The Sahrawi side said it welcomed the continued political backing from both Zimbabwe and Venezuela.
Allow me to extend my warmest congratulations to you and to the Polisario Front on this important occasion. I would like to reaffirm my commitment to continue working closely with you to strengthen and expand the strong bonds of friendship and solidarity that have characterized the historic relations between Zimbabwe and the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. I also renew our unconditional support for the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination.
And as you followed in our tonight's headlines, the Easter ceasefire announced by Russian President Vladimir Putin has come into effect amid mutual accusations of violations. The truce began at 4 a.m. Moscow time on Saturday and is set to last 32 hours until midnight on Monday. It follows Putin's earlier announcement of the pause in attacks, including on energy infrastructure. Russian authorities said a Ukrainian drone struck a gas station in Russia's Kursk region, injuring 3 people, including a child. The regional governor said the attack hit the town of Gov after 4 p.m. during the ongoing Easter ceasefire. Two people were killed in Russian airstrikes on the southern Ukrainian city of Odessa, according to a Ukrainian military official. The head of the city's military administration said on Telegram that the strike hit a residential area, also injuring 2 others. The incident comes despite a Kremlin-declared 32-hour ceasefire, calling for a halt to military operations. Now a quick check on other stories making news around the world with Sofian Kanturi in the News in Brief.
Hundreds of Moroccans took part in demonstrations across several cities in Morocco in support of the Gaza Strip and in rejection of normalization with the Zionist entity. The protests, organized by the Moroccan National Action Group for Palestine and the Moroccan Front for Supporting the Nation's Causes, called for anti-normalization and halting all forms of occupation with the Zionist entity. Libya, the government of national unity, welcomed the agreement reached on unified state budget, marking a breakthrough after 13 years of political deadlock in Libya. In a statement issued Saturday, Prime Minister Abdelhamid Dubeiba said the deal of the regulated public and nationwide represents a key step toward restoring proper management of the state finances. The Council of Representatives of Iraq elected Nizar Hamidi as President of Iraq, following a 5-month political deadlock in the country. Hamid secured the presidency by the parliamentary majority after 2 rounds of voting, competing against several other candidates. Djibouti's incumbent president, Ismail Omar Guelleh, has been re-elected for a 6th term after securing 97.8% of the vote. Official results were released Saturday by Djibouti's Interior Ministry showed that his sole challenger, Mohamed Farah Samatar, received just 2.2% of the vote.
That's all for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good one.